Switzerland looks like the safest, calmest country on Earth. But what if I told you this peaceful land is secretly built for war, survival, and total collapse? Beneath its streets are bunkers for everyone, guns inside homes, and mountains turned into fortresses. Switzerland didn't prepare for peace. It prepared for the day the world ends. And once you know the truth, you'll never see this country the same way again. Fact number 1, Switzerland is secretly built for the end of the world. Switzerland looks like a peaceful postcard country, with green valleys, luxury watches, and quiet cities. But beneath this calm surface lies one of the most shocking secrets on Earth. Switzerland is literally built to survive the end of the world. While most countries talk about emergency preparedness, Switzerland actually prepared for total nuclear annihilation decades ago, and it did so in complete silence. Hidden under ordinary homes, schools, hospitals, parking garages, and even playgrounds are tens of thousands of reinforced underground bunkers, enough to shelter almost 100% of the country's population, something no other nation has ever achieved. This is not a rumor, not a conspiracy, and not a secret military project. The Swiss law actually requires that every resident must have access to a nuclear fallout shelter within a specific distance of their home. If a building does not have one, the owner must pay a special tax that funds the construction of public bunkers nearby. These bunkers are not symbolic or outdated relics of the Cold War. Many are still operational, regularly inspected, and stocked with ventilation systems, blast-proof doors, water filtration units, food storage areas, and medical supplies designed to keep people alive for weeks or even months underground. Some shelters are so well disguised that residents live their entire lives above them without realizing what lies beneath their feet. In apartment buildings, what looks like a normal basement is often a sealed survival chamber with walls thick enough to withstand nuclear shockwaves and doors weighing several tons that can be locked within minutes. Schools have classrooms that can instantly transform into shelters, complete with sleeping racks and emergency lighting. The most disturbing part is not that these bunkers exist. It's why Switzerland felt the need to build them everywhere. Switzerland assumed the worst-case scenario, that one day, nuclear missiles would fall, borders would collapse, and only those who were prepared would survive. So instead of trusting global peace, they engineered survival into the country itself. Entire mountains were hollowed out to create secret military bases, command centers, and storage facilities that could function independently from the outside world, complete with underground hospitals and power systems. Some of these facilities remain classified, their exact locations unknown even today. Unlike panic-driven shelters built after disasters, Swiss bunkers were designed with cold precision, as if destruction was not a fear, but an expectation. Even more unsettling is how normal this all is to Swiss citizens. Children grow up knowing where their assigned shelter is. Emergency drills are not dramatic events, they are routine. The idea that civilization could collapse overnight is quietly accepted, not discussed emotionally, but planned for logically. In recent years, as global tensions rise again, interest in these bunkers has returned, and many younger Swiss are only now realizing the scale of what their country prepared long before they were born. Some bunkers have been converted into data centers, hotels, or storage vaults, but their original purpose remains unchanged: survival at any cost. While the rest of the world debates whether a global catastrophe could happen, Switzerland already answered that question long ago and acted on it. This raises an uncomfortable thought. What if the safest country in the world isn't peaceful because it trusts humanity, but because it never did? Switzerland didn't prepare for war. They prepared for the moment when the world stops making sense. And when you walk through its quiet streets today, surrounded by calm faces and perfect order, remember this: beneath every step you take, there may be a door designed to close forever. Fact number 2, Switzerland is the most expensive country on Earth, yet almost no one is poor. Switzerland consistently ranks as one of the most expensive countries in the world, a place where a simple coffee can cost more than an entire meal in many other nations, where rent prices seem unreal, and where daily life appears financially impossible to outsiders. Yet behind this shocking cost of living lies a paradox that almost feels unreal. Visible poverty is nearly non-existent. Walk through Swiss cities like Zurich, Geneva, or Bern, and you will struggle to find homeless camps, aggressive begging, or slums. Things that are common even in wealthy nations. This raises a haunting question. How can a country be brutally expensive and yet so economically stable for almost everyone who lives there? The answer is not luck, and it's not magic. It's a system built with ruthless precision. In Switzerland, wages are designed to match the cost of living, meaning even basic jobs like cleaning, retail, or food service pay salaries that allow people to survive with dignity. A supermarket worker can earn in a month what some professionals earn in a year elsewhere. And while taxes are not low, people can clearly see where their money goes. Healthcare works, infrastructure never collapses, and public services are efficient to the point of being almost invisible. But this balance comes at a psychological cost. Swiss life operates under intense pressure to perform, contribute, and stay productive. Falling behind is not socially dramatic. It is quietly unacceptable. Social support exists, but it is structured to prevent long-term dependency, pushing people back into work rather than allowing them to disappear into the system. There is also something unsettling about how order is maintained. Laws are strict, rules are followed without argument, and financial discipline is culturally embedded from childhood. Debt is discouraged, impulsive spending is frowned upon, and stability is valued more than ambition. This creates a society that looks calm on the surface, but underneath runs on constant healthcare is mandatory and private, meaning everyone must pay monthly insurance, but the system ensures fast access and high-quality treatment, removing the fear of medical bankruptcy that haunts people in many countries. Education is practical rather than idealistic, steering students into careers that are needed rather than dreams that may fail. Vocational training is respected as much as university degrees, creating a workforce where almost everyone has a purpose. Even unemployment, when it happens, is temporary and tightly regulated, preventing people from falling into long-term despair. Yet this near absence of poverty hides another truth. Life in Switzerland is not easy. It is simply controlled. The high cost of living acts like a filter, eliminating chaos, forcing discipline, and demanding responsibility from everyone. Those who fail to adapt often leave the country quietly, priced out rather than publicly broken. The streets remain clean, not because problems don't exist, but because the system absorbs them before they become visible. Crime linked to desperation is rare because desperation itself is engineered out of daily life. This creates a strange emotional atmosphere. Safety without warmth, comfort without excess, stability without drama. To visitors, Switzerland feels like a utopia. To residents, it feels like a machine that must keep running perfectly, or else every train arriving on time, every street spotless, every rule followed. These are not signs of peace, but of control refined to perfection. Switzerland did not eliminate poverty by generosity alone. It eliminated it by designing a society where failure has no place to hide. And that is what makes it unsettling. In a world where chaos feels inevitable, Switzerland stands as proof that order can be achieved, but only if everyone agrees to live inside the system, quietly, efficiently, and without excuses. Fact number 3, Switzerland technically has no capital city. And that's not an accident. Most countries proudly declare a capital city, a single center of power where decisions are made, authority is concentrated, and national identity is anchored. But Switzerland quietly broke this rule and never looked back. Because officially, Switzerland does not have a capital city at all. Yes, Bern functions like one. Governments meet there, politicians work there, and foreign embassies operate there. But here's the disturbing truth. Nowhere in the Swiss constitution does it say that Bern is the capital. It is simply referred to as the federal city, a carefully chosen phrase that avoids granting its symbolic dominance. This wasn't an oversight or a historical mistake. It was a deliberate decision rooted in deep fear of centralized power. Switzerland is not a nation built on conquest or kings. It is a fragile alliance of regions, languages, religions, and cultures that agreed to coexist only because no single place would ever rule the others. By refusing to name a capital, Switzerland ensured that no city could become too powerful, too influential, or too dangerous. Power in Switzerland is deliberately scattered, fragmented, and diluted. Government offices are spread across multiple cities. Federal institutions operate independently, and decision-making authority is broken into layers so complex that no individual or location can ever fully control the system. Even the presidency is rotated yearly, stripping the role of long-term influence and preventing the rise of political personalities. This structure creates a country that feels stable, but in reality is constantly balancing itself, like a machine designed to never allow pressure to build in one place. The absence of an official capital also reflects Switzerland's obsession with neutrality, not just in war, but in governance itself. Declaring a capital creates hierarchy, and hierarchy creates targets. Switzerland learned early that power attracts conflict, envy, and invasion. By avoiding a symbolic center, the country made itself harder to destabilize. There is no palace to storm, no square to occupy, no single city whose fall would mean national collapse. Even if Bern were attacked or incapacitated, the country would continue functioning almost seamlessly. Laws would still be enforced, finances would still move, and administration would quietly shift elsewhere. This decentralization is so deeply embedded that Swiss citizens rarely think about it, yet it shapes everything around them. Cantons operate like semi-independent states, controlling education, policing, taxation, and healthcare within their borders. National decisions often require public referendums, giving citizens direct control rather than trusting distant authorities. The result is a nation that feels strangely leaderless, yet incredibly controlled. To outsiders, it appears confusing and inefficient, but in practice, it creates resilience. Nothing dramatic ever happens all at once in Switzerland, because nothing is ever allowed to concentrate. Even protests feel muted, because there is no ultimate place to protest against. This system also creates an eerie psychological effect. Responsibility is everywhere and nowhere. If something goes wrong, there is no single institution to blame, no capital to accuse, no throne to challenge. The system absorbs anger and distributes it until it loses force. Historically, this structure protected Switzerland during Europe's most violent periods. While empires collapsed and capitals burned, Switzerland remained intact, partly because there was no heart to stab. Its power lived in agreements, not buildings. Even today, this decision feels unsettlingly relevant. In a world obsessed with strong leaders and dominant capitals, Switzerland's refusal to choose one feels almost rebellious. It suggests that true stability does not come from visible authority, but from systems designed to survive without it. When you stand in Bern today, walking past quiet government buildings and calm streets, it doesn't feel like the center of a nation. And that is exactly the point. Switzerland didn't forget to name a capital. It chose not to, because a country without a center is a country that cannot easily be destroyed. Fact number 4, Switzerland is armed to the teeth, yet almost no one gets shot. Because it is one of the most heavily armed civilian populations in the world. Yet mass shootings are almost non-existent. This is not because guns are rare. They are everywhere. Swiss military service is mandatory for most men, and after completing training, soldiers are allowed to keep their service weapons at home, meaning assault rifles are stored in bedrooms, closets, and basements across the country. For decades, ammunition was also issued and kept at home, sealed but ready. A silent reminder that every household could become part of national defense within hours. To an outsider, this sounds like a recipe for chaos. But in Switzerland, it resulted in the opposite. Gun ownership is not treated as a symbol of power or identity. It is treated as a responsibility. Firearms are normalized, stripped of glamour, and buried under layers of regulation, training, and cultural expectation. From a young age, Swiss citizens are educated about the consequences of misuse, not through fear-based messaging, but through routine discipline. Guns are tools, not statements. Ownership requires background checks, psychological evaluations in some cases, and strict storage rules, and violations are punished quickly and quietly. But laws alone do not explain the calm. The deeper reason lies in Swiss society itself. Violence born from desperation is rare, because economic collapse is rare. Mental health support exists. Stigma is lower, and social pressure encourages stability rather than rebellion. The culture values restraint over expression, order over impulse, and community over ego. This creates an environment where pulling a trigger is unthinkable. Not because it is illegal, but because it would represent total personal failure. Even military culture reinforces this restraint. Soldiers are trained to defend, not dominate. The idea of using force internally is treated as shameful. This mindset is so deeply embedded that when rare shooting incidents occur, they shock the entire nation, not because people are naive, but because violence feels alien to the system. Over time, Switzerland quietly removed ammunition from homes. Not due to rising crime, but as a symbolic shift toward even greater safety, proving that preparedness does not require paranoia. Still, the weapons remain, resting silently in homes, a strange balance between trust and control. What makes this truly unsettling is how easily the system could fail, yet it doesn't. In many countries, far less access to weapons has produced far more bloodshed. Switzerland demonstrates that violence is not born from tools, but from social breakdown. Where trust exists, weapons sleep. Where despair spreads, even bare hands become deadly. Swiss cities do not rely on heavy policing or aggressive enforcement. Order emerges naturally because most people believe in the system they live under. This belief is constantly reinforced by fairness, predictability, and consequence. If someone breaks the rules, the response is swift and unemotional, removing drama and reducing copycat behavior. Media avoids sensationalism. Names are often withheld, and incidents are not turned into spectacle. This denies violence the attention it feeds on. The result is a society that is armed, alert, and calm, a combination that feels impossible elsewhere. Switzerland's gun culture forces an uncomfortable realization. Safety is not created by banning or flooding weapons, but by shaping the environment in which people exist. Guns in Switzerland are not symbols of freedom or fear. They are reminders of collective responsibility. Every rifle at home represents trust placed in the individual by the state, and breaking that trust would mean exclusion from a society built on precision. This quiet agreement between citizen and country is what keeps the trigger unpulled. While the rest of the world argues endlessly about guns, Switzerland lives inside the answer, proving that the real danger is not firepower, but a society that has lost control of itself. Fact number 5, Switzerland has survived every war by preparing to be untouchable for more than 500 years. While empires rose and collapsed, borders were erased, and entire civilizations drowned in blood. Switzerland did something that looks almost impossible in hindsight. It survived every major European conflict without being destroyed, invaded, or conquered. And this survival was not luck, not kindness from powerful neighbors, and not moral superiority, but a calculated strategy designed to make the country too dangerous to attack and too useless to occupy. Switzerland declared neutrality, but neutrality alone has never saved any nation. Preparation did. While other countries invested in expansion and glory, Switzerland invested in defense, deterrence, and denial. The country trained its citizens to fight not in distant lands, but on their own streets, mountains, and valleys. Military service was not about power projection. It was about turning the entire population into a living obstacle. Every bridge, tunnel, and mountain pass was studied, wired, and prepared for destruction if invasion ever came. The terrifying plan was simple. If an enemy entered Switzerland, nothing would work. Roads would collapse, railways would vanish, supply lines would be cut, and the invading force would find itself trapped in hostile terrain with no resources and no escape. TI's strategy, known as the National Redoubt, involved hollowing out the Alps and transforming them into fortresses filled with artillery, command centers, hospitals, and hidden barracks. During World War II, As Nazi Germany swallowed country after country, Switzerland stood directly in its path, small, rich, and vulnerable on paper. Yet it was never invaded. Historians debate the reasons, but one fact remains undeniable. The cost of invasion was calculated and found to be too high. Swiss resistance would not have been a traditional war. It would have been a slow, grinding nightmare, fought in narrow valleys and frozen peaks, with every citizen trained, armed, and willing to destroy their own infrastructure rather than let it be used. Even if Switzerland fell militarily, it would have been worthless economically, reduced to rubble by its own defenders. This is the darkest secret of Swiss peace. The country was willing to sacrifice itself completely to deny victory to anyone else. Neutrality also allowed Switzerland to become a diplomatic and financial hub, hosting negotiations, storing assets, and maintaining communication channels between enemies. But this role was protected by its defensive posture, not separate from it. After the war, Switzerland did not relax. During the Cold War, it doubled down, expanding bunkers, modernizing defenses, and maintaining a military readiness that far exceeded what its size suggested. Unlike other neutral states, Switzerland never relied on promises. It relied on fear. The fear that invading Switzerland would be a pointless, exhausting, and humiliating endeavor. Even today, many of these defenses remain quietly maintained, rarely discussed. Fighter jets can launch from hidden mountain bases, highways can transform into runways, and mobilization plans can activate within hours. To the outside world, Switzerland appears peaceful, wealthy, and detached from global conflict. But this image is carefully curated. Underneath it lies a philosophy that understands a brutal truth. Peace is not given, it is enforced by preparation. And history has repeatedly proven that caution-wise, the country did not survive by being invisible. In a century defined by destruction, Switzerland's greatest weapon was not its army, its money, or its mountains, but its willingness to make itself impossible to conquer. And that is why, even today, surrounded by global instability, Switzerland sleeps calmly, knowing that if the world burns again, it will not beg to be spared. It'll make the cost of touching it unbearable.